way like that. But this Thursday, I wanted to talk some boxing. I just want to do some boxing talk with y'all because we've been having a little bit of interest in talking boxing as of lately. It's been actually coming back a little bit stronger than the previous month. And there was just a few topics that I wanted to talk about. So yeah, man. First up, I want to talk about this Seniesa Estrada fight versus Miranda Adkins. And I don't want to talk about it in a good way. So just so y'all know, like when I talk boxing or anything, I want to talk about the good and the bad. And this one, I want to talk about bad mismatches, horrible mismatches, horrible matchmaking, because Estrada Adkins, the number one question a lot of people are asking is who thought this fight was a good idea, because I have to talk about this because it can lead to, people really getting hurt in the ring and just like false, it can give you false observation of what a real champion is. You know what I mean? And I just want to go back and, kind of recap what happened that night and give you my thoughts on why these type of fights don't need to be taking place. Horrible mismatch. So I want to talk about that. PBC, they returned to boxing. Their boxing's really back now. I feel like their lineup from August to December is looking a lot better than what we've been seeing on previous cards, especially after seeing this Estrada Adkins fight. Hopefully what PBC is bringing forth from August to December is going to be good. But I'm going to go down and read the list. Of course, there's like a couple more fights that, been added to the schedule. So I just want to kind of fill y'all in on the fights and the fights that I'm really anticipating on the cards, because there is some good fights coming up. So, hey, boxing is coming back a little bit stronger. So, yeah, want to talk about that schedule. And, of course, September 12th is going down, Roy Jones Jr. versus Mike Tyson, 8-round exhibition fight. We're going to talk about a few questions I have about this fight and just go all the way back with it, the little bit of history with it. And better late than never, right? I know a lot of people are, scared of the fact that these two are in their 50s, but that's what they do, man. That's what these two guys do. They're fighters. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, because I did a previous video on this topic. But two of my top favorite exciting fighters of all time. I got it from my eras, so I definitely got to go back and talk about it, man. But yeah, man, like I said, going back to Saturday, Estrada Adkins, this was like one of the scariest knockouts that I've seen, in the past few months. And like, I don't mean like scary as in like eye opening where you get real excited. You more so get disgusted. Like it was a scary knockout as in the fact that it was just like a very horrible mismatch. Because going into this fight, okay, Miranda Adkins, like just a few days ago, she turned 43. But when she took this fight Saturday night, she was 42. Big difference, right? So she got brutally knocked out in less than 10 seconds. I think it was like a 7-second knockout, which gives Estrada the fastest knockout in women's boxing history. Was really not nothing to brag on. It's not much to brag on, because when you're talking about the caliber of opponent she was facing, man, just off of body language alone, that should have told you that she didn't need to be in there, right from the jump for us. Like, if you're not familiar with any women's boxing, like I'm not familiar with Miranda Adkins. I wasn't familiar with her, but when that bell rung, I already could tell right there that she didn't need to be in there with an 18-0 champion. So after seeing this fight, I went back and did my research, and I looked Miranda Adkins up, and she's 5-0. Like I know, like when they did the tailored tape and all that, I saw 5-0. But when I looked up her 5-0, she had fought before this. She had fought 4 fighters, all 4 of these fighters making their pro debut, and her 5th win was against an opponent that was 0-2. So that's a combined record of 0-2 amongst 5 fighters. So right there, I was like, what the hell were they thinking, man? Because, you want to put this fight on live and expect fans and even casual fans to just accept this as like a top level knockout for Estrada. I'm like, that's crazy. Like, who sanctioned this fight? Because you're putting the 18-0 champion in there with a fighter who has no wins over an opponent with wins. You know, nobody on her record has scored a win in their life. So I was just like, who really thought this fight was a good idea? Like, who really thought at the last minute they could just grab somebody like Miranda Adkins out of a gym and just say, hey, you're ready for a title. You know, you look good in 5 fights, beating up fighters making their pro debut. Hey, you're ready for a title shot. What makes you think that fighter is ready for a title shot? When have you ever seen a fighter really ready for a title shot? Like, would you want to see Devin Haney in there after he had beat like 7 fighters making their pro debut? Would you want to see him go straight in there with a Vergil Ortiz and say, oh, this kid is it? So that just kind of shows you the different angles of boxing, like the good, the bad, and the ugly. And this right here is the bad and the ugly. It's the bad and the ugly all the way, man. And I'll break that down for you in a minute. But for me, I'm going to give you my honest opinion. Like, I come to watch boxing for the competition, no matter how it goes as far as like the results. Like, and I mean like top level competition. I love to see boxing either go the distance. That's cool. But I also enjoy knockouts. But I don't watch boxing to see someone I know that shouldn't be in the ring get their head taken off or get put into a coma. No, I don't watch it for that. Like, seeing Estrada go in there knowing she's 18-0, let's say if I was a big fan of her, I don't want to just see her go in there and take anybody's head off. You know what I mean? Like, even back in the day when I'm watching Mike Tyson fights, like, if I wasn't really like, I was like, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 already watching those fights. But I'm already going there with the illusion that these opponents are, you know, credible opponents. But as you do your research more and more, you're going to want to say, okay, I don't think that guy should go in there with him, you know, because I don't want to see somebody just get killed that's not on the level with him. You know what I mean? So like going into this fight here, like even like for youngsters coming up that watching boxing, they're probably thinking, oh, this girl 5-0, she must have an impressive 5-0. But no, man, like when you just already see the body language for somebody like me watching boxing, you're like, man, this person don't need to be in there. What the hell were they thinking where you could say that this girl needs to be matched up with her? And, you know, it always goes back to what we say in boxing, man. That's why we say there's levels to this. You know, there's times where we have to say fighters have to grow before they just jump right into the fire, you know, and in no way would I ever, like, even if she had an opponent with 1 win, would I ever said, okay, a fighter like this needs to be in there. Even if she was doing shit impressive against sparring partners or impressive against world-class champions in sparring or in the gym, no way would I say, okay, she's ready for an 18-0 Estrada. You know, and this is, like I said, this is the ugly I'm going to bring up. There's a thing called padding records in boxing. You know, there's a certain type of boxer that is created from the jump to make future champions and stars look good. You know, so basically what I'm saying there's some boxers that are made to be sacrificial lambs to make the next boxer look like the one, you know. So that might be their whole thing from the jump. When they get the gym, somebody might say, oh, you look like you could take a punch. You know, you look like you got something that could take you at least this far. Or let's see where we could go with this. We could get you a couple fights and then get you in there with the champion. And then the matchmakers could say, okay, this person, Mr. X, looks good, so bring him in here and fight my guy who's on the come up, who's a solid 15-0, and we'll pay you a nice amount of money for making Mr. Y look good. Because as Mr. X, he's the guy that's just, you know, they just pick up off the street and they just build him up with a padded record. And he's already coming out looking like a promising guy. But all the while, the people around him know that he is going to be a sacrificial lamb at some point. So the big promoters come along and they see Mr. X. They want to put Mr. X in there with Mr. Y, who is the considered superstar of the truth, to make their fighter look good. And I think this was one of those situations. But There was nothing on this record of Adkins that made us say this girl looks promising. There was nothing on this girl's record that made us say this girl is promising. So when you just go back and look at it, any fan, any matchmaker, if you look at this right away, you would say, oh no, like you'd say, okay, Miranda Adkins, who do we got to face Estrada? Miranda Adkins, no, next. If that's really about your matchmaking, you would say, oh, next, we ain't gonna put her in there. That's a joke fight, which it turned out to be. And I think these type of joke fights, man, they push people away from boxing. They push people away from boxing, and that's why I say you got to be a little bit more respectful to the sport, and by that we want top level competition versus top level competition, and that's the ugly. And the bad is the outcome for the fighter, both fighters, but really for the loser in this, who would be Miranda Adkins. And I'm not picking on Miranda Adkins, but like I said, like when I saw the body language and the way she was laying there, you really feel bad for her, man. You really feel bad for her because she could have really got damaged in this fight. What was the point of us like building yourself up to 5-0 and then jumping in there with an 18-0, right? So just like I explained before, that kind of tells you what kind of road they had her on. Because Tracy Adkins, 42 years old and undefeated, she must didn't really think highly of her record either if she jumped in there and took an 18-0 fight, because it was on her to also say, no, I'm not ready for this fight. You know what I mean? Like if I'm 5-0 or 7-0, no, I'm not going to be ready for, if I'm the heavyweight, let's say if I'm a heavyweight, I'm not going to say, oh, okay, I'm ready for Deontay Wilder. No, there's other intentions there where they're saying that we're going to put you in there to make Deontay Wilder look good. You know what I mean? So I would, if I really cared about my health and my record, then I would say, hell no, I ain't taking this fight. So when you think about it, maybe Miranda Adkins just wanted to take the fight for the money and didn't feel like she could ever make it anywhere. But like I said, she was only 5-0. You never know what she could have did. But it's just a bad outcome for her because she could have really got damaged in there. And she looked like she was. Like, I know the doctors let the fighters lay there for a second, but she looked like she was really hurt. And again, going back, like I said, I'm not making fun, but just seeing her, the way she didn't even shell up, but just kind of like folded, took them shots and just her head hit the canvas. And then just seeing like the mom on the shorts. Like, I know there's a lot of parents in boxing, of course, but just seeing like that added element of the big mom on her shorts and knowing she was 42 and the way she couldn't even like defend herself and the way she only lasted 7 seconds just all add to like her really looking like just a person off the street, which she hadn't really graduated from much anyway, even at 5-0. Like I said, when you look at her 5-0, she's not much different than, just the regular mom trying to get in shape in the gym at the moment, because she, again, 0-2. That's her combined opponent's record. So that should tell you something right there. But yeah, man, that's just like horrible mismatching. Like I said, that pushes people away from boxing. And it's really no knock to Estrada, but sometimes I feel like the fighters, they need to be aware of who they're getting into the ring with. I know boxing's been off for a while and they're ready to, get back in there and, throw down. But, sometimes you got to say, okay, who am I fighting? Even if, of course, when it's late replacement, they have no choice. But if they already have a scheduled bout, they have to say, okay, I have to be aware of who I'm fighting. Let's see who I'm fighting. Okay, Miranda Adkins, 5-0. Damn. All her opponents haven't beat anybody. Then you have to say, man, I can't do this. I can't fight this person. I could really hurt him. You just have to be honest sometimes like that. And I have to give her Estrada credit because after the fight, of course, she said that if she had to do it again, she wouldn't approve of this fight. But like I said, if you had known before that, you could have said, hey, I don't approve of this fight, because this fight to me really does nothing for Estrada in the long run. You could have costed a person's life against in that person, being a fighter that's not even ready for A-level competition. So, aside from being the fastest KO in women's boxing, there's really not much else to stand on in this one, But yeah, that's just horrible promoters, horrible matchmaking over there, man. And that like I said, that stuff I always kind of petition against and just say I'm against straight up. That's why I'm doing this segment here, okay? Because I think more people need to be vocal on this type of situation in boxing of trying to pad people's records or make padded record opponents for upcoming champions. Nah, man, just go put them in there with the toughest. If they're going to be top level guys, or they're going to be superstars, so be it. Let them be that the right way, but don't just put them in there with, trash matchups like this. Again, I'm not calling Adkins trash. I mean, she probably could have been better had she, they put her on the right path and, taking the right fights. But y'all just threw her right in there to the line right away, which is dirty. And one more point I wanted to make too is like I would have rather seen Estrada in there with a 20-15 opponent. I would have rather seen it like a 20-15 or like a 10-5 or like a 30-12, because that way we would know she's going in there with somebody that's durable and somebody that has had hell of a lot of experience and definitely has to have some names on that record. That's somebody that's going to last a lot longer. The odds are a bit greater that they're going to last a lot longer than a 5-0 opponent with an 0-2 opponent record. So that's just another thing that I want to bring up. So don't be, this is for the casual fan. Don't be blinded by the records. When you see a 18-0 versus a 7-0, go and do your research first, before you start thinking this is like a real battle of the undefeateds or a battle of like top level competition. No, go do your research on that 7-0 or 5-0 opponent, man. You'd rather want to see them in there with an experienced person with like 20 wins and maybe 10 losses, because you're going to get a better fight and you're going to get a better challenge for your champion. But yeah, man, I know I kind of went on about that topic for such a short fight, but there was just so many angles to it that I wanted to talk about. And those angles not only like cover what happened in this fight, but that's like good and bad and ugly and, all of boxing. And, it's happening. It happened from back in the day all the way up to now. So I think it's just something that people need to be more aware of is, we need more legit matchmaking, no more crap like this. But yeah, man, moving on. Vergil Ortiz versus Samuel Vargas. This was a much better fight on the card. We had Vergil Ortiz making his return to boxing and improving his record to 16-0 now, right? 16-0. Let me know if it's 16-0. He was able to stop Samuel Vargas in 7 rounds, continuing his knockout streak. And to me, definitely stepping up his skill level because, Samuel Vargas, he's a common opponent in Errol Spence, Amir Khan, and a few other people. And I feel like going into this fight, this was definitely going to be a fight where we would have to see Vergil Ortiz depend on more than just the power. He'd have to be more of a methodical fighter and showcase consistent work. And he did that. He showcased consistent work, good solid jab, his ability to move side to side and not get drawn into a war with Vargas. Because as much as Vargas was trying, Vargas was trying to push him. He was coming in with the body attack, the inside fighting. But Ortiz, he stayed patient that whole time. He stayed patient. He would step out of range. Every time Vargas would step into Ortiz's range, he was the first to let go. He was the first to let go with combinations and that piston jab. And his shots versus Vargas's shots, you could already see right there. That Ortiz has a lot to offer as a fighter, and that's one of my things is like a fighter always looking for accurate shots with bad intentions on them. And that's what Vergil Ortiz was doing in there. He was slowly just like keeping the pressure off of him with, keeping Vargas' pressure off. That early onslaught of body shots in like the first, second, third round from Vargas, Ortiz, he took them well. He was able to block a lot of the shots. And as he blocked them, he'd come back with the heavier shots. He was making sure that he was landing the shots to get the respect. Now, Vargas wasn't full on respecting them, and that's why he was getting tattooed up in this fight. He was taking some heavy shots. But as Ortiz was throwing these more economical, efficient shots, he was slowly just breaking down the output of Vargas. You could see it, and that when you went on down to 4 and 5, that's where you could see that red on Vargas's face, and he was just out of it from there. And then Ortiz just let his hands go around 6 and 7 and was really just tearing into him with shots to the head and to the body. And at the end of that 7th round, big onslaught from Ortiz, and the referee said, "Hey, I'm gonna stop it." The bell rung, but he went on and stopped the fight. And I think it was a good stoppage. I thought it was a good stoppage because at the end of that round, Vargas, he took like a consistent amount of headshots and he wouldn't go down. And sometimes that's like that's one of the more dangerous ways a fighter can get hurt. Sometimes when that heart keeps you standing, it's a dangerous thing to let that fighter continue on and on and on for rounds, because it's like their heart's keeping a minute and that chin is keeping a minute. But the brain is like telling it. It's telling the chin and the heart to say, man, we got to stop. But you keep letting them go because it's like they're more so in command. Sometimes you think of those guys with like granite chins that like to take punches. It's like they have more command over the brain. So they're kind of like telling the brain, nah, we can keep doing this. But the brain is getting overworked. All the while the brain's getting overworked and it's really starting to swell. So you've seen it in the past where fighters, they stayed in it for like 12 to 15 rounds and they collapse after a fight, which is kind of worse than just getting knocked out after one cold shot. Getting knocked out cold might save you it might save you, in the long run versus getting like an accumulation beating like some of these fighters do. So yeah, it was a good stoppage on their part, for the referee to stop Vargas in this one, because like I said, he was taking some heavy blows. And Vergil Ortiz, he's a heavy hitter. But yeah, man, moving forward from here for Vergil Ortiz, already after a fight like this, and of course he's extended his knockout streak. A lot of people are already putting his name in there with the likes of Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford. They're even going as far as to say like Keith Thurman wouldn't fight him, or Keith Thurman would run from him, or Keith Thurman's running from him. But, my thoughts on that. First, Vergil Ortiz, he's in a solid position to get where he wants to be. But he's also in the perfect position to lose that path as well. Once you get in a position like this, a lot of opportunities are going to open up. But going back to, like I said in the previous segment, there are going to be opportunities where people think that 16-0 looks good and they want to throw you in there as a sacrificial lamb. So you have a choice right here already. You're in a good position to already be that next champion if you move right. Or you could just go ahead and sacrifice it all and throw your chips on the table and say, okay, I'm ready. Like let's say Bob Arum, he could call Vergil Ortiz tomorrow and say, okay, that 16-0 looks good. It'll make Manny Pacquiao or somebody look good, or it would make Terrence Crawford look good from here. So we'll go ahead and take the fight now instead of letting him build up. But no, like you don't want to go that path if you want to be a real champion. So for Vergil Ortiz, he needs to keep moving along, at a pace that helps him graduate to the next level. Don't ever step your level and think you're better than you are, because that's when the humbling comes along. That's when you get humble, because Ortiz definitely has something. He definitely has a gift that's pushing him over the rest. So there's really no need to rush a title shot right now. There's no need for him to call out Errol Spence and think he needs to fight an Errol Spence fight next year, like at the beginning of next year. Like Errol comes back, which we'll talk about that in our next segment. But when Errol comes back, Vergil is still not going to be ready for this fight, So especially when you look at, 16-0, 16 knockouts, you got a couple of names that Errol, Amir Khan beat. You got a Mauricio Herrera on your record. You got names like that. Okay, those are graduation names to relieve the pressure off of you and really test your skills and test your ability to overcome adversity. But you have to graduate level by level. You have to take the right steps to open up your mind and skills to more pressure outside of the ring, help you think of different ways to kind of break that ice on how to not second guess yourself when you're going in there with an A-level guy, that's out of the ring and in the ring. So you really need to work on a lot of those things, just a lot of mental work, a lot of mental strength needs to be built up. So when you're 16-0, of course, 16-0 with 16 knockouts. Of course, right away, you're going to say, okay, I'm ready. You know, I can knock anybody out. But as soon as you say that, and as soon as you sign with the Terrence Crawford fight, let's be honest, you're going to be second guessing yourself at some point, especially in the ring, because when you start getting pieced up by a Terrence Crawford who's switching from orthodox to southpaw, and you're going to start saying, damn, maybe I did bite off more than I can chew. But see, if you would have graduated level by level, then everything will start feeling like second nature to you. You know, you'll start feeling like, okay, I know how to handle what he's going to do at this point. I know how when he shifts his feet, I can, you know, counter him at this point, you know, or I know that he likes to take a break in like the early rounds, and then he'll come on strong in the latter half of the fight, you know. So there's just a lot of things that you'll start to kind of pick up and get more comfortable on, or not, I'm going to say comfortable, but you'll start to be a little bit more accustomed to. You'll start being a little bit more accustomed to different things like this. So, but that's only with graduating level by level. So I think somebody like Vergil Ortiz needs to take his time, you know, work on his timing, his strength, his ability, like I said, to overcome adversity. You know, that's why I say when I hear like promoters say, oh, he's ready for a Spence or by next year, or Keith Thurman doesn't want him, and we're going to call out Keith Thurman, you know, there comes a point when the fighters just have to say, okay, man, like I have to come to terms with my own hype, because they're not really believing in my hype. They're just more so believing in my worth at this point. You know, if you want to make it in the long run, then you got to say, okay, let's build this hype up a little bit more. You know, let's put a little bit more steam behind me where I got more fights under my belt, you know. And with that being said, like I said, no Errol Spence fight next year, no Keith Thurman fight for him next year. I still think he needs the different levels, you know. I would like to see a Jesse Vargas fight with it, you know. And again, like I always say, there's levels to it. So I'd like to see him in there with the Jesse Vargas. I'd like to see Vergil Ortiz in there with Jamal James. Of course, I brought this up on my Instagram, Jaron Anus. I'd like to see him in there with Boots, man, because he's an undefeated fighter. He's a fighter with style. He's a fighter with that type of style that Vergil Ortiz never faced before. So again, that would really be a fight, a level up fight for him that would really test him. Like, can he deal with the showman? Can he deal with a boxer? Can he deal with somebody who's going to get in his head out of the ring and in the ring? You know, because you know Boots is going to put it on him like that because he's that type of showman. So let's see if he's that type of consistent guy that can just stick to the fight. You know, like I said, yeah, Jamal James, Thomas Delorme, I think he has a fight coming up. You know, so, you know, just that caliber of opponents, you know, just those type of caliber of opponents. But if he really want to test himself and he really thinks he's going to be on that next level, Udeni Ugas. Udeni Ugas, you know, that's the perfect combination of strength, solid boxing. One of the top guys with no titles that can definitely make you or break you. You know, Figueroa, he found that out. You know, so I think that a Ugas fight is really going to put a lot of things in perspective for Vergil Ortiz. And with those names I named, let's say Jaron Anus, Jamal James, Udeni Ugas, out of those three, he needs at least 2 out of 3 of those guys before he faces a champion. That's just me. I'm just being honest, man. So, yeah, I think that Ortiz has plenty of time. Let me know in the comment section what y'all think, though. Vergil Ortiz, like I said, you know, very, very solid puncher, exciting fighter. But if he wants to be more than an exciting fighter, you know, gotta take it step by step. You know, don't let the promoters push you and get you throwing in there with something you can't handle. But yeah, man, moving on. Next topic. Like I said, boxing is really, really coming back strong now. You know, I know a lot of people are still kind of they're still a little up in the air. You know, some people are still not feeling the matchups that are going down. But, you know, Top Rank, like I said, they brought boxing back. You know, there was a few matches in there that I didn't really care for. Some I wanted to see. You know, like I wanted to see Josh Greer fight. I wanted to see Dog Bay come back. And, you know, Isaac Dog Bay, he came back previous week. Shout out to Isaac Dog Bay. He had a good solid comeback win for him. You know, of Shakur Stevens, he came back in June. That was another fighter I'm always looking at. And Navarrete, he came back, but the caliber of opponents some of these guys been fighting, you know, it's just kind of been pushing people away, especially whenever UFC has been putting on like some, you know, solid matches. You know, they got this Fight Island now, and they just been going all out. When you got like Usman Masvidal, Rose Namajunas versus Jessica Andrade in the rematch, you know, just fights like that. Gilbert Burns versus Teron Woodley, all of those matches right there just make you say, you know, what's holding up boxing from making these top matches? I mean, we know what's holding it up, but a lot of casual fans are going to say, why can't y'all give us the same matchups, you know? But I think that PBC, with their schedule that's coming back this weekend, we're in the right direction. You know, so I just want to go down that list real quick. And like I said, just kind of let y'all compare it to Top Rank and DAZN's their previous matchups. But yeah, first up this weekend, August 1st, we got, well, this fight has changed just recently. It was originally supposed to be Battle of the Undefeateds. It was going to be Stephen Fulton versus Angelo Leo. But unfortunately, Fulton, he tested positive. He tested positive for COVID-19. And Tremaine Williams, he's going to step in and take on Angelo Leo now, man. And like I said, man, this is going to be a new norm now. Boxing and MMA. Somebody's always going to be out for COVID, man, until we really get this back on track. And like I said, I might have to do another episode on COVID and, you know, the precautions again, man, just to fill y'all in on how I feel. No, not too many people feel how I feel, but, you know, yeah, that's something I'll talk about. But August 15th, got David Benavidez versus Romer Alexis Angulo. Get Benavidez back in the ring, you know, as soon as possible. That this is a good matchup. You know, this hopefully, I won't say it's a good, solid matchup, but it's good to see Benavidez back in the ring. You know, hopefully this leads to like a Caleb Plant fight, maybe sometime next year. You know, we can really see where Benavidez stands, you know, in the super middleweight division, man. September 19th, shout out Erickson Lubin. He's making his return against Terrell Gausha, 154. You know, both solid. You know, they've given some of the solid champions solid fights. So, you know, this is something I'll definitely watch. You know, Lubin, you know, ever since his Charlo loss, he's been coming back stronger and, you know, adding more to his game. Gausha, that's a good fight for him to, you know, just get back in, you know, get back into the thick of things with, you know. Big fights coming up here, man. September 26th. I'm gonna have to do breakdowns for these, man, because I'm looking forward to these matchups. I was calling for these matchups a few years ago. Well, especially this middleweight fight that's going down. First of all, we got a Charlo doubleheader, September 26th. We got Jamal Charlo versus Sergey Derevyanchenko. And, yeah, that's the fight that I've been looking forward to for 2 years, you know, just when we had all these solid middleweights from Demetrius Andrade, Canelo, Jacobs, Triple G, all these guys need to mix it up. And finally, we're getting Charlo Derevyanchenko. I think that's going to be a good fight. It's going to be a good name for Charlo and a good it's going to be a good fight for Derevyanchenko, too. I think that Derevyanchenko is going to give Charlo another look that he's never seen before, a mixture of speed, power, and strength. And I think Charlo is going to give Derevyanchenko solid power, good range that he's not used to, a different boxing style. You know, I think guys like Jacobs, they kind of moved around a lot and gave him more respect. But I think Charlo in this fight is going to stand his ground more and really put that power on him and showcase youth and strength on Derevyanchenko. So, yeah, it's going to be a good fight. Also on the card, like I said, Jermell Charlo, Jason Rosario. This is going to be a big unification fight, man. This is WBC, WBA, IBF, all of that, except the WBO belt. But, yeah, this is going to be the big one. This unification fights went through so many changes. First, it was supposed to be Charlo Hurd. Then it was supposed to be Charlo J-Rock Williams. But now Rosario, he was able to upset J-Rock, and he's stepping back. These two guys, you got to give it to them, man. Like, they stepping back in their first fight after this quarantine to unify. That's big, man. And you got to give Big Charlo credit too, man. He's stepping back after quarantine against a very, very tough opponent, Derevyanchenko. the guy that I think handed Triple G a loss. So shout out to the Charlos. They got a solid solid competition for a big return for them, man. October 10th, Sergey Lipinets versus I can't pronounce this guy's name, but this is another kind of filler fight. Sergey Lipinets, he has an interesting style, but it'd be interesting to see what the undercard is going to look like. What's this guy's name? Kudratio Abu. I've seen him fight, but I can't pronounce his name. He's the undefeated fighter too, so we'll see how that goes, man. October 24th, another big return for Tank Davis. Big return against Leo Santa Cruz. This is a fight that, a lot of people have been calling for. They want to see Tank in there with the name. They want to see Tank in there with the name, whether it be Leo Santa Cruz. I've been wanting to see Leo Santa Cruz versus Gary Russell Jr., but some reason they don't want that fight with Gary Russell Jr. I want to see Gary Russell versus Tank. Anything. So I'm glad we're getting this fight. I'm glad we're getting Tank Davis versus Leo Santa Cruz. That'll hopefully lead to, bigger fights from here and keep Tank on the right track of fighting bigger fights. Because I think this is going to be a good fight for him. And like I said, he needs names. November 12th, we got Chris Colbert versus Jamie Arboleo. Chris Colbert, he's still on the come up. I've been keeping up with him since that Netflix show, Netflix documentary he was on. He's been making a name for himself. Even on Instagram, he's really been kind of pushing himself, on his own. So I gotta give him a shout out. Chris Colbert, he's a real student of the game. He comes to box. When you look at his style, he's a very young, disciplined fighter. He's just another guy that's going to need more names to really get him out there to the public, to really push him, the same way they push Lomachenko. I think somebody like Chris Colbert, the more and more people see him and appreciate his style, he could be that guy. Used to go by Lil B Hop because he's a true student of the game. But last fight we had is on December 12th. We got Nordine Dubali versus return of Nonito Donaire. I'm a fan of Donaire, so anytime he's coming back to fight, that's a good fight. But one of the fights that, like I said, wasn't mentioned, that's still being worked on, that's going to be coming out sometime in November, is the big one, sort of semi-big one. I know a lot of people say they don't want to see this fight, but like I said, I'll check it out because it's the return of the truth. You got Errol Spence Jr. versus Danny Garcia. And like I said, this is a solid fight for Errol Spence after 15 months off? Yeah, after a 15-month layoff, and he's still getting in there with the name. I think that's, that says a lot for Errol. He could have been taking on a guy like, there was that one fighter that said he had the Errol Spence fight and not Danny Garcia. He was like a Floyd Mayweather signed fighter, and like Errol just kind of shut him down. I can't remember the guy's name, but yeah, he was like, yeah, I'm fighting Errol next. And whenever Errol comes back, he was like a Floyd Mayweather signed fighter. And he just kind of tried to shake up the media with that. Now, if Errol was returning it against that type of fighter, I know a lot of people would give Errol flack for that, but you would understand if he wanted to come back after like a car accident, again, after like 14 months off, but Errol's coming back against, a solid guy in Danny Garcia. I know Danny hasn't been able to rise to the occasion against the toughest welterweight guys like Sean Porter and Keith Thurman, but he's always kind of held his own into that second tier, beating guys like Granados and barely skating by against like a Peterson. So yeah, I can see why some people think that Errol's going to wash him, but this is going to make a nice style matchup. And this is a fight I'm going to do a pre-breakdown on because I like to see pressure boxer that can do a little bit of everything versus, the boxer puncher and Danny Garcia. Danny got heavy hands to change the course of a fight. He definitely has that type of style, and he's a strong fighter. Not the best, but he's a strong fighter. So it's definitely a fight I'm looking forward to. But yeah, man, those are the fights we got coming up. this for the rest of this year to close this year out. So, you know, they're trying. As of now, I feel like PBC is trying a little bit harder than most. You know, they're giving us some good matchups here, and most of these here, they're not really mismatches. They're all kind of on the level. The best is probably going to be the doubleheader on September 26th. That's the one I'm really looking forward to. You know, the Charlos against Deryevchenko and Rosario. That's going to be a big one, man. Last time they did a doubleheader, I know it didn't really like go their way as far as like making big numbers and like going their way as far as getting W's. You know, the Tony Harrison and Matt Carball fights for both Charlos. But I think this one here, man, this was going to be like their coming out shell where, again, it could go either way, like Deryevchenko Charlo fight. That's going to be a tough one. But the Charlo and Rosario, that's going to be like a landmark for him because it's a unification fight. So, yeah, those are the two that I'm really looking forward to. Then probably the Tank and Leo Santa Cruz fight. And, of course, the one that's not scheduled, Spence Garcia. That's the one I'm looking forward to as well. But, yeah, let me know in the comment section what y'all think. Like I said, PBC's matchups are a little bit better than Zones and Top Ranks. But I think they'll get better and better from here because I don't think a lot of fans are going to be taking they're going to be taking crap anymore, especially after seeing what UFC's put on. But last topic, y'all. Last topic I got for y'all. September 12th. Yeah, September 12th, we got Roy Jones Jr. versus Mike Tyson. Iron Mike Tyson. It's going down in an 8-round exhibition match on pay-per-view on this app called Triller. And I think Roy said it's going to be on like on-demand pay-per-view as well. So, the first thing when I heard this was announced, I was like, what? You know, that was my first reaction. I was like, are they serious? Because I just saw the little fight poster on Instagram. Somebody posted. I kept looking at it like real close. It had the faces up, like it had like the extreme close-ups of them. And so my Instagram, I posted it up there. But it just has that, and it has Roy Jones Jr., Mike Tyson, heavyweight, and I think the date was on it. But I was just like, what? I was like, is this like another Photoshop thing? But then as I look more and more into it, you know, a couple of videos on YouTube, it's like, nah, man, Mike is really coming back against Roy Jones, you know. And I had heard Mike coming back, possibly fighting like exhibition matches with, you know, Tyson Fury. But, you know, I heard that fight, you know, went south. You know, they're going to pay Roy a lot of money for that. Then they offered Roy like $20 million to fight. Who is he going to fight? Like a bare knuckle boxing fight. But that didn't go through. I think those numbers might have been a little bit off, but he didn't, you know, he rejected that offer. Ever since like Mike's just been coming back with these videos of him training, you know, you knew he was into something. You know, he wasn't just going to be training for, you know, anything. I remember he did like the little sparring exhibition like a few years back, you know, with the headgear. And, you know, that did like crazy numbers just to see Mike get back in there. But this go round, like the way he's been looking at 54, there was no way that he was just gonna, you know, continue to post little Instagram videos of him like, you know, just going ham, you know, like that. Like not without this leading up to something, you know. And lo and behold, like some people thought it was gonna be Holyfield, because Holyfield, he's on the other side, you know, training hard as hell. You know, he's out there with Klitschko just like getting it in. You know, he's out on the beach jogging, he's out there, you know, throwing down, you know, jump roping, looking better than me with the jump rope at his age. But, you know, he's been out there with Klitschko doing his thing. But I thought that fight, a third fight with him and Tyson was going to come up like an exhibition fight. But no, they didn't go. That didn't happen. Lo and behold, Roy Jones signed on to fight Mike, you know, and Mike, they both popped up on Instagram and they're live and they both signed a contract for it. So, yeah, I was just like, man, it's really going down. Like after what could have happened maybe like 20 or 17 or 20 years ago, they finally get the fight on. And first off, man, I just got to say my personal thoughts on it. Like I know a lot of people already see the age and they've seen what Roy's been through and they've seen how Mike's career ended. They're automatically going to say, no, these two don't need to be in the ring. But my thoughts is, man, at this point, I don't care, man. I really just want to see Roy and Mike face off. I really want to see them in the ring because back in 2003, that was really one of the matches I wanted to see. you know, being like one of Roy's biggest fans back in the day, when he was like Mr. Unstoppable, I wanted to see him in there with the best. You know, I really wanted to see him in there, test himself in his prime. Whenever he moved all the way up to heavyweight, I wanted to see him get in there with somebody like Iron Mike. Even if Iron Mike wasn't the same Iron Mike would have still been a challenge for a former middleweight moving up to heavyweight. So to finally see them in the ring somewhat, and even like an exhibition match, you know, I'll take it. You know, this is what they do. You know, they're in their 50s, but, you know, they're fighters. You know, you could tell them no, but they're still going to do it. You know, if they're not going to listen to their trainer, their close trainer, if they're not going to listen to their wives or their mothers or brothers, then why would they listen to me? So I'm not going to tell them no. You know, at this point, I'm not going to tell these two guys no. But yeah, that's my personal thoughts. Like, as far as just seeing it, I want to see it. But another question I had is like, how serious can we take it? You know, like, how serious can a lot of people take this fight? Like, I think, like, and that leads to why I say I don't care about seeing them in the ring, is because, like, I don't think this is a fight like a lot of people should really take seriously on two different levels. Like, we don't need to take this serious as far as, like, you know, trying to push older men out of boxing. You know what I mean? Like, older guys, like, past their prime, still trying to box. It's not that serious. You know, that's why they're calling it an exhibition match. I think it's just two guys in there going in there to kind of like make money and maybe raise money for like an organization. I'm sure there's something tied to that, maybe. But I think it's just one of those moments where two guys still kind of want to get back, inspire themselves, and, you know, kind of make a show. Because you got to remember, boxers, it's not only a martial art, but it's also entertainment. And sometimes guys like this, they're like, you know, they're like actors. You know, they're like the Denzels or Robert De Niro's, Al Pacino's. When they get to a certain age, you know, they still want to be in big budget things. You know, they still want to be around like movies that are really going to say something. And I know in boxing, this is as close as they can get. You know, it can't be sanctioned anymore, you know, a fight amongst the young lions, because there's a physical difference versus acting. But guys like Roy and Mike, they still have that fight in them. They still, because that's where they grew up, and that's where they feel like they're going to end their lives at, you know, as well. Not just their careers, but in their lives at, which, you know, I think is, I think it's like a love story. You know, it's their first love, and that's how they want to end their lives. They want to end it with the sport that made them the men they were. So I think that going into this little exhibition match, is something to take serious as in that. It take serious at that, in that effect, where, you know, you got to really appreciate two men who want to come back to the ring. And just like I said, going back, watching them train, you know, watching like Mike train at 54 and push himself is inspiring. Like I said in the previous videos, it's inspiring for me, and I'm nowhere near his age, you know, but it's inspiring because I say it's making me say, every time I see a 50-year-old man go out and do it, there's no excuses for me. You know, there's no excuses. I need to be pushing my ass just as hard, you know, especially I don't have any injuries or anything like that. I need to be going out there like that. And a lot of people need to, you know, if he can do it, I can do it. You know, that's the kind of vibe I get from it. So I take it seriously in that way. But like, as far as taking it serious, again, it's just an exhibition match for these two. You know, they're just kind of going in there, going through the motions. Of course, they are going to be throwing punches. There's no headgear so far. I think the gloves are going to be a little bit bigger. So they just want to go in there and do what they do. That's a part of it. Now, how dangerous could this be? I think we know, and I think a lot of people know, man, like how dangerous this could be. When you say boxing and 54-year-old men, that right there is just like the red alarm. The red alert just goes off in your head already, because you know that just spells injury, right? But yeah, that's another factor I've definitely factored in. Like, I know that this fight can be dangerous. You know, it is dangerous. Anytime you're going in there with Iron Mike and you on the opposite side, it's definitely a dangerous fight for you. So it's more so a dangerous fight for Roy Jones in this. You know, I think, yeah, Roy could hurt Mike, but Mike can definitely hurt Roy. You know, Mike's hurt some, you know, prime Mike has hurt men twice his size. Out of prime Mike has hurt men twice his size. So a Mike that's been away 15 years from the ring and still is Iron Mike Tyson somewhat could definitely hurt a man that's almost his size, you know? So I think that we know that it is dangerous. And again, it just goes back to the fact that these two men are born in boxing and this is what they do. They always known that they could get hurt, but they still want to go back in there and do it again. And George Foreman, he brought up some good points, you know, like he said, somebody's definitely gonna, you know, somebody definitely could get hurt in this fight. You know, I won't say somebody's definitely getting hurt in this fight, but somebody could definitely get hurt in this fight. And he made some good points too. Just the fact that we only see certain clips of Mike. And I brought this up to some people too before George said it. You know, I had said, like, I wonder how good Mike looks for round after round after round of pushing himself like that, because we're only seeing like little clips. Like when we were seeing those little Instagram clips of him, you know, pushing himself, you know, on those mitts, I was like, how long is he keeping that up for though? You know, is it for like Floyd Mayweather type rounds? Is he like got the Hopkins stamina in there, or is he, you know, just, you know, taking little clips of maybe like a minute or two, and then, you know, he might be a little bit hurt or might be a little bit more exhausted. And George brought up some good points, because like he said, like, we're only seeing what they want us to see. You know, we don't know, like, Mike could be getting out of the bed every day, like, or he could be getting out of the bed some days and like damn near pulled an ankle, you know, damn near twisted an ankle, or like pulled a calf muscle. You know, he, like he said, he could be really, really hurting after these training sessions. And then I saw an interview with Mike too, man. Mike, you know, said it's been very, very painful. You know, going through this training is very, very painful, but he pushes his body through it because he's a fighter, you know? So, I think the possibilities, yeah, is very high, you know, somebody getting hurt in this fight. So it is dangerous. Any boxing match is dangerous, but this one more so is dangerous when you're talking about even Roy fighting Mike. Because looking at Roy, you know, me being a fan, watching him his whole career, you know, ever since his debut way back 89, like up to the fighter he was back in 2018 in his farewell fight, you know, you see the big difference in movement in the legs. Sometimes Roy's legs look a little bit stiffer now. Like before, his elusiveness was so much more, but it seems like even in his later fights, in the cruiserweight fights, he doesn't really use his legs as much, like at all. Like it's more upper body movement and hand speed that, you know, earns him rounds in fights, but you don't really see the legs move at all. So you kind of wonder how he looks in full training camp right now, you know? So a lot of danger going in there, you know, of course, but I'm just saying, like, when you do look at those factors like that, it does make people kind of question, like, you know, what could happen in this fight then? Like, could they get hurt before? What could happen before the fight? You know, do you think Roy could pull something before the fight? Do you think Mike could pull something before the fight? It's very, you know, it's more likely now that they're in their 50s, you know? So like George said, I agree with him. You know, like he said, what they don't show, he's only showing you what they want you to see. So you don't know, like Mike could really be in pain in some parts. Like he said, he could be pulling stuff, or, you know, it's like whenever when he feels that pain coming on, he's like, turn that camera off, you know, just those little factors like that. So yeah, it's definitely it's definitely dangerous. All the way, it's definitely dangerous. But again, going back to the previous stuff I said, this is what they want to do. But I think that Mike just wants to find out where he could be again. You know, he wants to find out where he could kind of push himself to be again, you know, and I think that's, you know, I just think that's kind of amazing in him for a man that everything he's been through, the good and the bad in boxing, and being 54 now. And for Roy, you know, Roy, he didn't retire too long ago, but just 2 years ago. I think Roy wants to really do something big, you know, do something big at the end of his career. and kind of showcase to people the type of courage he's had, the bravery he's had. He's had some rough fights towards, after post Ruiz fight, first Tarver fight. And I think he just wants to come back and say, I'm not scared of anybody. That's something that Roy's always said, so you got to respect both of these guys for wanting to get in the ring. But real quick, man, I do want to like take a look back at these guys, maybe like 2003, like I said, this fight isn't going to be the fight it was, but there was a lot of people saying Roy is going to get killed in this fight, and I think that's disrespectful because I don't want to see Roy die in this fight. But I know the dangers of fighting Mike Tyson. The dangers of fighting Mike Tyson or high for any opponent. But we know for the way Roy's looked in some of his past fights that we know that the odds of Roy getting really hurt in this fight are there. But I just want to go back and look at when this fight could have taken place back in 2003, man, because like 2003 Roy versus a Mike from 2000, 2001, 2003, I think that would have been a great fight back then. And, again, some people are saying Roy's going to get starched in this fight, but there was a time when Roy could have beat Mike Tyson decisively, in my opinion. I think that post Lennox Lewis, Mike Tyson, I think Roy could have beat Mike in maybe like 99 or 2000 before that fight. After Roy won that belt back in March of 2003, the WBA belt against John Ruiz, there were talks of Roy Jones getting the Mike Tyson fight. And this was a story from Roy. He said that he had, I think, Jay Prince or some of his people reach out to Mike Tyson to try to make this fight. And at that time, back in 2003, they said that Mike said no. They said Mike didn't want the fight. His head wasn't in boxing. He didn't want to take that fight. So Roy went back down to light heavyweight to make history by being the first light heavyweight champion to win the heavyweight champion, and then to be the heavyweight champion, and then move back down and become the light heavyweight champion again. So he just went off and set that record. And he did it, of course, after he beat Tarver the first time. But that was just something I wanted to bring up because, a lot of people felt like there was another rumor where they say that Roy was offered like $40 million to fight Mike Tyson, like $33 million to $40 million. And, Roy already stated that was never the case, because I think that anybody would have taken that amount of money to fight Mike Tyson, because Roy was the one always calling Mike out. So if the $40 million was on the table and he got what he was calling out, don't you think he would take the fight? Don't you think he would have taken the fight back then? But it was like Roy said, when they had reached out to him, Mike's head wasn't in boxing at the time, in that year, it wasn't in boxing, which I could definitely see that. But I could just imagine what that fight would have been like back then, man. That fight would have been, like I said, that would have been like a milestone for Roy Jones, man. Roy, with the combination of speed he even had at heavyweight, he only weighed in like, I think 199 or something, like 190 at heavyweight. With the speed and the power he possessed, to me, was enough it would have been able to bust Mike Tyson up and keep him honest. And he probably, if he couldn't have he couldn't have knocked him out, he probably been one of the first boxers to beat Mike by a decision. Because if you go back and look, everybody, they had to stop Mike Tyson. They had to stop him to get him out of there. They had to get him out of there to win a fight against Mike Tyson. But I think Roy had enough speed to baffle Mike. Maybe not enough power to knock him out, but enough to like frustrate him and hurt him and keep him at bay from like cross the ring at times, especially whenever Roy utilized the jab at heavyweight. That thing was tough. I think he didn't break John Ruiz's nose off that left hook and jab. So yeah, Roy had some power at heavyweight. And I think if he would have settled in after the Ruiz fight, kept the weight and the strength on, I think that yeah, he definitely could have busted Mike Tyson up in a heavyweight fight. And then you just factor in his body punching. Now, as far as how he would have reacted from a Mike Tyson punch, I don't know. At that point in his career, his chin seemed a little bit better, but maybe he would have had more wits about him to, you know, if he got rocked, to kind of roll with it and just kind of like hold Mike a little bit more. And I think there have been times that his speed would have been so blinding to Mike and so different to Mike, because Mike's never faced like would have faced a fast heavyweight like Roy Jones. He probably would have never touched Mike. I mean, he probably would have never touched Roy. I don't think he would ever touch Roy with like a solid punch, you know, because you got to think Mike is big. You know, he would have been like a 220 something heavyweight, and they're both 5'11". And you got to think about that reach and that distance, that range. Like when Roy's moving, he would have been way out of the way of one of those hooks from Mike Tyson, or even the right hand. And he could have been in there, been in and out, landed 2-3 shots and then move. And that would have been Roy's style in that fight. So I think Roy, back in 2003, I think he could have pulled out a unanimous decision against Mike Tyson. There probably would have been a couple scares, but like I said, his chin would have held up. And I think Roy, he could have boxed his way to a decision, busting Mike up, maybe possibly stopping him. You know, I think that's what the prime Roy looked like at the time. You know, I would have put money on Roy beating Mike Tyson in 2003. But as of now, you know, it's just a different story. You know, whenever the legs and the speed and the reflexes are gone, you know, that makes you more of a sitting duck. And, you know, like they say, the power is the last thing to go. You know, Mike Tyson still got the power in it, right? So when you're talking about putting these two together in the ring against a more stationary target, you know, that could just spell knockout. It just spells disaster. But we'll see how it goes, man. Yeah, we're really going to see how it goes. But the last thing I did want to say on it, too, was the fact that going back to where I was saying how serious is this fight? You know, like I said, it's not serious in a way is like this leading to something bigger, like leading to like a Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder fight. No, it's not leading to anything like that. But I think it's serious in a way is saying this is kind of like a message to the champions of today, you know, to show them how it's done. You know, we got two named guys that just said, hey, you want to fight? I'll fight. Yeah. They signed the contract live, you know, like so many people nowadays are so divas, like we don't even actually see them sign contracts sometimes, like boxing, like they try to keep everything so mum. Like we don't need to know the money amount, but it would be nice to like actually see them with the contract with their top level opponents and they signing off and they just saying, yeah, I'll fight you, you know, like that's what Roy and Mike did in this situation. And I think that's kind of that's the way it would have happened before. But like I said, Mike's head wasn't in it. But I think it's just a good message to the champions now to say, hey, man, y'all need to do it. There's two messages to it, like to just say yes whenever a big fight opportunity comes and make it happen. And the second message is do it before you reach this age. You know what I mean? Like with Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence, there just needs to be a point where they say, okay, forget the promoters. We're not fighting it. You know, let's tell them we're not fighting anybody else after these two fights we got coming up. After I beat Danny Garcia, I'm coming for you, Terrence, because we need to go ahead and do this now at this age. We're not waiting till we're 53. We're not waiting till we're 63. We're going to do this now. So let's get these contracts made up and let's do it, you know, because they mess around and wait. You don't know what could happen. You see Errol Spence got into car accidents, you know, thank God he recovered. But, you know, what if he didn't? That would have been just like another missed opportunity for them, you know, of making history. So while these guys are able-bodied, they need to do what Roy and Mike are doing. That's basically what Roy and Mike's message is right now. Y'all need to handle business now. Stop letting shit marinate. Go ahead and handle business now. That's the message here. That's the overall message in this. That's why this fight's going down. And I hope that these champions are taking it that way. You know, everybody from Terrence, everybody to Errol, they, you know, keep that same energy. You know, the Errol's been keeping, you know, Errol's got his blueprint out, but, you know, I want to see all these other champions, lower weights, Tank, Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson, Lomachenko's, Teofimo's. I want to see all these guys say yes to the big fights now, you know, because then think about it. When they get to a certain age, they're going to be wanting to do what Mike and Roy are doing now. You know, they're going to be wanting to say, oh, man, I wish I could have taken that fight now. But while y'all are able-bodied in your primes, do it now. But, yeah, man, that's all I got on this one, guys. You know, like I said, a lot of interesting stuff going on in boxing, and I think it is picking up. Even just going back and up to Estrada, Adkins, man. As like I said, I'm still I'm still a person that really stands for solid matchups. That's why I say these fighters need to fight now. Stop fighting mismatches, stop fighting like crap fights. I try not to call fighters bums, but when fighters aren't in their league, they need to stay away from that type of matchup. Very dangerous too. Not only is it ugly for your resume, but it's just gonna be dangerous to the other opponent. But yeah, man, that's all I got, guys. Like I said, I'm gonna start doing a little more like boxing episodes and women's MMA episodes. I'm gonna do Tuesdays and Thursdays. Don't hold me to that yet. We're gonna see how it goes. But this one is for Thursday. So yeah, make sure y'all follow me here on follow me here on my Instagram. I posted here, Combo Breaker 99 and at All Box and everything. And you can subscribe here to Combo Breaker 99 YouTube channel. And follow my other show, Jab Podcast. I'm gonna post all that info right over here on the side too, man. But yeah, I'll be back with another episode for y'all. I'm actually gonna watch this Invicta FC 41 tonight. That's going on in like another hour. So let me put this episode out, and probably come back with the episode tomorrow. Since I didn't do the women's MMA episode today, I'll probably do this episode tomorrow. Just kind of talk about those fights. But I will do some breakdowns of those fights as well, man. But yeah, that's all I got, guys. Combo Breaker 99. I'm out. Peace.